Okay, welcome to season 2, episode 2. Thank you all for being with me. Uh, we're going to go over what are the DART procedures, and I'm going to introduce John Appleton's version of the DART procedures. So, Coffee with Christopher. Thank you for putting up with my rambling, withdrawn method of communication. I don't have a thoroughly prepared speech, but the other day, John asked me if I could send him something about the DART procedures to get him up to speed. And I thought about it, and I could not. So I wanted to say the thing that I wish that somebody simply told me. So I'm going to go over here and describe briefly the DART procedures, and then I'm going to talk about John's version of it, which is just so extraordinary. Okay, let me give you a quick history of Raymond Dart and the Alexander technique. Raymond Dart was brilliant. He was from Australia, that area, and tried to move to London just like Alexander. You know, if you were an intellectual back then in the late 1800s, your goal to success was to move to London and be part of the British Empire. So both Alexander and Raymond Dart grew up in a farm, moved to London at the first chance they could. Alexander lived most of the rest of his life in London. Raymond Dart got immediately I think he immediately intimidated the establishment of the London British intellectual elite. And when they saw this really bright kid, they said, "Okay, well let's send you down to Africa to start up a school for us down there." And Dart was like, "But I want to hang out with you cool guys." And they're like, "No, no, no, we need you here." And so he went to Southern Africa and became a real life Indiana Jones. I mean, this guy was trekking through undeveloped, unexplored Africa, finding gold mines and river rafting, and I mean he was and eventually this was the man Raymond Dart who convinced humanity that we evolved out of Africa. It was a huge fight against Europe and London and the intellectuals in the London scene. It's a whole story. Uh, Raymond Dart's, has a long Wikipedia page. He's considered one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century, and yet none of it mentions his contribution to the Alexander technique. So, what is his contribution to the Alexander technique? Okay, Alexander was an artist and a stage actor, and he would get on stage doing one-man Shakespeare shows. Like, this guy was an explosive controlled firecracker, like lighting people up. uh Raymond Dart, but okay, so Alexander had the insight, but he had none of the tools to explain what he had discovered. He was an artist who saw it but could never explain it. Raymond Dart, on the other hand, was a scientist. He was an anatomist. He was someone who could look at a piece of rock with some bones sticking out and be like, wow, that was a 14-year-old girl who walked on two legs and died when she was blah, blah. And he could just read rocks and tell you all about the anatomy. He's like, this one's different because this alignment of the jawbone means that she was standing and blah, blah, blah. He was a brilliant man in academia and in science. But he could never have discovered what Alexander discovered. Like, he never would have seen it, but he could explain it. Alexander saw it, could never explain it. Raymond Dart never would have seen it, but could explain it. And here's what happened. So Raymond Dart has trauma in the first part of his life. His wife can't have kids. They get divorced. He gets remarried. And this was in the 40s when you weren't supposed to get divorced, but he gets remarried, has one kid, okay. The second kid is a major problem. It's premature. He can't walk right, and he's obviously not well. And so Raymond Dart, at this point, he's been working so hard to build up the medical school and like expand the British Empire, unfortunately, and had this kid, broke down, nervous breakdown. He had to take time off, take a sabbatical so he could regain himself. In this time, he finds Irene Tasker in South Africa teaching the Alexander technique. And she comes and teaches him for 2 months. She gives him the insight. 2 months. I don't know if it was every day. I don't know if she lived with him. I don't know the exact on that, but I know that they spent 2 months together. And then she moved back to London. And Raymond Dart basically laid on the floor and thought about it for 2 years. Then he gets up and writes 3 papers that completely recontextualize the anatomical foundation of the Alexander technique. It's a long story for sure, but the Dart procedures evolved out of I read it in Skill and Poise. Dart's work is dense. I had to read each of these papers 5 times to begin to understand it. And the one that talks about the Dart procedures is the attainment of poise. And it's towards the end of the paper. And let me just summarize our understanding of it at this point. The Murrays developed this. They taught Luc Vanier. Luc Vanier taught me about it. And I call it the alternation of the limb girdles. So the Dart procedures are, in their essence, transferring the support of your body between your your leg girdles and your arm girdles. So it's various degrees of bending over and committing your weight to your arms and your legs and your arms and your legs, and having your spine be something that is supported between these 2 alternating forms of support. So, just like a 4-legged animal when we used to walk, the hips here are more flexion and a primary support. The arms are more related to extension and looking up and reaching. And so, boy, we can tie this into the breath with when we tie together episode 1, where let me just walk you through it. I'm standing here, and I want to take my spine up and over my legs until I get support on the ground from my arms. And then I want to support myself completely with my arms until my legs free up and I can walk in place. And then if I put my weight back in my legs, I can walk my arms and legs, and that's the alternation of the limb girdles and the fundamentals of the Dart procedures. If we add the breath onto this, then when we have the weight on the arms, I can use my extensors, I can get into the secondary position and exhale into extension. Then when I'm done, I inhale into the primary support of my hips, my diaphragm, that whole mess. So we can do that all just standing up regularly by exhaling into our up, inhaling into our support. Secondary, the tiniest bit of extension. Primary, the diaphragm catalyzes. And pulls me into the support. Okay. I'm at 10 minutes now. That's a 60-second recap of Raymond Dart's contribution to the Alexander technique and the basic procedures that Joan and Alex built up out of that one, I don't know, it's like a 15-page paper. It's incredible. Now I'm going to show you one simple image from John Appleton. I mean, could an image be more simple? You can count the number of lines on this thing. It's so simple, and yet it's describing something similar to the Dart procedures in such a radically different way. Let me walk you through this image. So the first thing you notice is that this image is horizontal. So it's talking about John's and Dart. I mean, they're both talking about how we evolved from points to lines to four-legged things to upright four-legged things. So John's just using this horizontal flat body to say something. We're going to do this image together, okay? And we're going to start off from the same position that the Dart procedures start off with. So I'm going to stand in front of something, and I'm going to think about my hips, where my spine connects to my hips, and I'm going to take my spine as one piece up and over my legs to go and put my hands on the chair. And chances are, even though I did my best, I totally engaged my spine to secure myself. And so I'm going to do a little bit of the alternation of the limb girdles and pick my arms up, then pick my legs up, then pick my arms up, and tease apart my spine in between these two girdles, just to start off with. Okay, and one difference between John and the Murray's version of the Dart procedures, and let me just add that John doesn't call this the posture release imagery Dart procedures. This is just, I'm using one of his images to describe his take on this. Sorry. Okay. So on the Murrays, I put my hands straight like this. With John's Darts, I put them side to side, and you'll see why in just a second. So I come down and I put them side to side. And I want to look at the split John is making here down my arm. It starts where the cervical becomes the thoracic vertebrae, and it cuts the arm in half. And so we're here finding the support. And what I want you to feel is the pointer finger and the thumb are connected to the upper arm, and that's connected to your head and your face. And that's one piece of you. And then after you roll around and kind of feel the connection of that piece, I want you to find the pinky finger and the ring finger and how they connect up through the bottom of the arm into your torso. So there's two pieces to your arm that split apart at about the middle finger. The first two fingers go with your head, and the last two go with your torso. Okay. Now let's find the split, the division in the hips. Again, it splits into your middle toe. So your big toe and the second toe are part of your torso. They connect up the inside of your legs into your belly and your chest. And they connect all the way down to your little finger and your ring finger. So see if you can find that table that's not tipping forward or not tipping back, but the table that's left when the two parts fall away, your little finger to your big toe and your torso in between. Find that. Okay, now for the last piece that John calls the rudder. Take your pinky toe and your ring toe, run them up the outside of your foot, the outer part of your leg, and into your tail. So that's a whole piece of you that is separate somehow from the middle piece, the motor. And then the front of you with the pointer finger and the thumb, John calls your director. So that's his version of the separation of the limb girdles. And maybe in the next episode, I'll talk about how this all works out through geometry. And it's just two ways to break up the same form. I think it's really fascinating. These three segments of John's are astounding things to play with. There's so many images we could work with on this. But I'm going to leave you at that. 16 and a half minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any questions, leave a comment. I love this stuff. I'll see you soon, and God bless.